here are also really excited to speak to you. So I told them earlier that we've only got about an hour. So I'm going to keep my part of the intro pretty short. Uh, but I was hoping to give you a chance to introduce yourself to people who don't know who you are. So whenever you're ready, go for it.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me and all you all who are joining in on this call. I really appreciate it. My name is Daryl Davis, and music is my profession. I have been playing for almost 40 years, traveling around the world, touring around this country. But while music is my profession, improving race relations has become my obsession. That's why I was excited to get on this call with all of you from all walks of life. So let's get at it.
Okay, our first question is from TonySoprano, a user called TonySoprano.
Okay.
Tony, whenever you're ready, go for it.
Hi, Daryl. What advice would you give to a white man who's with a black woman and his family doesn't accept our relationship to try and turn their opinions around?
Okay, well, remember that they are opinions, and what they have to say to you and your wife are not factual. They're opinions, and certainly they are entitled to their opinions, whether it's right or wrong. But I would say this: one's perspective is one's reality. So rather than try to attack their reality, offer them some different opinions, offer them some other perspectives, and find out what is at the core of their animosity towards your relationship with the black woman as your wife. Is it religion? Is it they think that black people are inferior, or is it cultural? What exactly is it? And offer them some different alternatives. I feel that probably in time they will come around, because that's a learned behavior, and what can be learned can also become unlearned depending upon how you handle it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next question is from Aliens. Aliens, you're unmuted. Go whenever you're ready. Aliens?
Hello. Hi, Daryl. I'm
Hey,
a huge fan. Pretty good.
Hey, how are you doing?
So what I'd like to ask, and mostly because I live in places like Texas, where I deal with this on a basis. So have there been any situations where you've never been able to gain the mutual respect of someone you've attempted to reach out to or understand, no matter how hard you try, kind of like, not a Roger Kelly, just on the cusp?
Yeah, sure, of course. There'll be some people who will go to their grave being hateful, violent, anti-Semitic, and racist. I mean, on all sides, black, white, Hispanic, or whatever. And no one has a monopoly on racism. But for the most part, I've been pretty successful and pretty happy with my relationships with people. And if somebody is willing to sit down and have a conversation, there is an opportunity, to reach some kind of common ground and mutual respect. But again, there will be those who will never change, and you'll find out. Texas is a pretty big place. I've been there quite a number of times, and over in East Texas, around Vidor, is probably where you'll find some of those people who are very hard to change.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Aliens.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
The next question is from Conical. That question is, what's your opinion on the media and their alienation of people whose opinion is different from the establishment? Do you think that this media alienation has played a part in radicalizing people?
Oh, yes, absolutely, man. I will be 63 years of age next month. And when I grew up, the news was the news. We had people like Walter Cronkite, David Brinkley, Chet Huntley, Barbara Walters, and these people gave the news, just the facts. Today, what they call the news is opinion. It seems like every news outlet, wants to offer you an opinion and tell you what to think, as though we, the listeners, are stupid and can't figure it out for ourselves. If you want to have a show that offers opinions, that's fine. Call it opinions and say, hey, this show is all about how we feel, and we think you should feel the way we feel. But don't call it the news. The news on CNN should be the same news on Fox, should be the same news on OAN and MSNBC and News Channel 8.
Cool. Okay, next question. This question is actually something that I struggle with. It's from Vegemite, our Lord and Savior is his name. The question is, Do you think far-right radicalization is fundamentally different online? And how would you go about trying to de-radicalize an internet radical?
Far-right radicalization is really no different than far-left radicalization, because everything is a circle. And if you start, let's say, at 12 o'clock, and let's say right there, and then people go in opposite directions. One goes around clockwise and one comes around counterclockwise. When you get to 6 o'clock, you're right back to where you started. You're right there next to each other. So it's really no different on how you go about, de-radicalizing a far right person online or in person. What you have to do. Let me tell you something. Like I said, I've been to 57 different countries on 6 continents. I've played in 49 of the 50 states, and I've been exposed to people from all over the world. And no matter how different somebody may be, what language they speak, what culture they practice, what church they go to worship in or whatever, when I get back home here to the States, I conclude one thing. Everybody I met is a human being. And no matter what differences we have, we all still want the basic 5 things in our life. We want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly. And we want the same thing for our family as anybody else wants for their family. And if we show people that, we will find that society a lot easier to navigate, whether it's somebody in outer Mongolia or somebody in East Texas or somebody, in the far right or the far left.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Katie Cat. That question is, have you found that there has been an increase of memberships in KKK/white supremacist groups in recent years?
Yes, there has, Katie Cat. And I'll tell you what's going on here. The media, chooses not to talk about it, but they do know about it. When I was a kid, as I said, I'm 63 years old, almost. When I was a kid, the Black population in this country was 12%. Native Americans, 1%. Hispanic people, right around 2%, and Asians, right around 3%. This country was built on a 2-tier society, the top tier being white supremacy, and the bottom tier being slavery. And we moved up top to bottom through the years. We never moved up on an equal plane. So we're still a little bit, well, I say we, Black people are still not up equal with the majority. Well, in the year 2042, which is only 21 years from now, this country will be 50-50 because we have a lot of immigration coming into this country. A lot of people are here from different cultures, etc., different colors. When I was a kid, or even when I was a teenager, we had something called white flight, which meant that you had an all-white neighborhood, and then when people of different colors started moving in, the white people moved out of the neighborhood and moved into another all-white neighborhood. And then when people of color came there, they moved out again. So that was called white flight. But white flight no longer exists in this country. The landscape, the color of the landscape has changed so much, over the last, decades, that there is no more white flight. And what the people in the KKK, the alt-right, the neo-Nazis, the Proud Boys, and different organizations or movements tell me is, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. They call it the browning of America, or white genocide through miscegenation. So they're fearing their identity being erased. And now that's their perception. And as I said earlier, one's perception is one's reality, whether it's real or not. So that's why we're seeing all these groups pop up. When I was a kid, it was just the KKK, some neo-Nazi groups, and then along came the white power skinheads. Now today you got, the KKK, neo-Nazis, the skinheads, the alt-right, the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, the Vanguard, the 3%ers, the 1%ers, and a whole slew of groups. And they're fearing that erasure. That's why you keep hearing, take our country back. We're going to build that wall. We're going to send those people back to wherever they came from. And so people are going and joining all these groups out of fear that their identity is being erased. And when those groups, fail to take action and take our country back, so to speak, some of them get frustrated and say, you know what? If the Klan can't do it or the neo-Nazis can't do it, I'll do it myself. And that's when they walk into a black church and shoot up the place, or into a synagogue and shoot it up, or the Walmart in El Paso, or the Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. And these people are called lone wolves. And unfortunately, you know, as we get closer and closer to 2042, we're going to see more and more lone wolves out of that fear of being erased. But it's a false fear. Nobody's trying to erase anybody, you know, and this country is going to fall apart if we don't learn how to get along.
Great answer. Thank you so much. The next question is from Nihang. Nihang, you are unmuted. Whenever you're ready. Thank you, Mr. Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Did you always fear for your safety at a KKK rally, and were you ever attacked?
Both. Yes, I have been attacked before, and fortunately, I prevailed. But you know, and those times are few and far between. You know, most people, whether they like you or not, you know, if you show them respect, they will show you respect. And oftentimes, they realize that I know a lot about their culture, and they're curious as to how I know so much about their culture. Well, it's because I studied it. And we have a conversation, and we find that we have things in common. We don't always have to agree with one another, but at least we can have civil conversations. In terms of do I fear at the KKK rallies? Well, there are two kinds of KKK rallies. There are public ones, which they go and they get a permit to hold a rally, at a park or some location, and they have to apply for that permit, through City Hall or through the court system or whatever. If it's on public property and there doesn't seem to be a lot of hostility, that's going to be there, anybody can go. It's public property. You just go to the park or whatever. But if it looks like there's going to be a lot of violence and things like that, then you have police who are keeping one side away from the other side, so it's hard to get close. And then the other kind of rally is the private rally, where the rally is held on private property, and you would have to be invited by one of the members who would have to get approval from the Grand Dragon or the Imperial Wizard, whoever is in charge of that particular rally. And so on a number of occasions, I have been to public rallies. I've seen clashes. I've seen peaceful people, standing away and just, holding up their signs, detesting the Klan or whatever. And I've crossed those lines and walked right up to the Grand Dragon and the Imperial Wizard and had conversations with them. I've been invited by the Grand Dragons and Imperial Wizards to various rallies on private property. So when I go to those rallies, the private ones, no, I'm not really fearful because I've been invited. And the membership knows, hey, if this guy is cool with the wizard or the dragon, then we need to be cool because, there's a chain of command. So whether they like me there or not, they have to respect that their boss invited me. And of course, when I go there are those who are cordial to me, and there are those who are not so cordial to me, but they don't act upon it because they've been told, hey, if you don't like him, just stay away from him. But he's a guest here.
Great. Thank you, Nihang. The next question that we've got is from Hedo Pepe. He's one of our mods. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you for having me. Well, I think it's changed a great deal. We've come a long ways, but we still have a long ways to go. I was born in 1958, and that was, the heyday of rock and roll. And I play a lot of rock and roll. My degree from college is in jazz, but I love playing rock and roll. And I'll tell you something. Back in the day, even in the 50s when I was born, from the 1940s, 50s, whatever, they had laws of segregation in this country. So let's say if you and I were to go to a concert, say in the 1940s, to go see Frank Sinatra or Glenn Miller Orchestra or whatever, you and I could not sit together If I was allowed into the theater or concert venue at all, there were ropes going around the chairs with signs hanging off them that said seating for white patrons only or colored seating only. So we had to sit in the seating section as designated by our skin color, just like I'm sure, you were aware of the different, colored water fountains, colored restrooms, colored waiting room, or whatever, that were segregated. So music halls were the same way. And two phenomenons happened in the 1950s. One was the invention of rock and roll by black artists like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Bo Diddley, and the popularization of that music by great white artists like Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Buddy Holly, Bill Haley and the Comets, and people like that. And the difference was this. When people went to see Sinatra and whoever else, people obeyed the laws. They stayed in their designated seats. But when rock and roll came in, teenagers, which is what that music appealed to at the time, they could not sit still to that new beat. And they got up out of their seats and they were, knocking over the ropes and signs, and they were dancing in the aisles together, black kids and white kids, for the first time in the history of this country. All right. And now these are kids, blacks and whites, who did not know each other. Because, you got to remember, back in those days, schools were segregated. So blacks and whites did not even go to school together. So they didn't even know each other. They might see them on the street, something like that. But, they didn't have classes with them or work with them or anything like that. But yet this music they could not sit still to caused them to rise up out of their seats and start boogieing and dancing in the aisles together. And that would cause the city fathers, the mayors, the council people to shut down those concerts. Cops would go in there and literally pull the plugs out of the wall on the sound system. So that concert was overdone because they were race mixing, and that was illegal. And a lot of rock and roll concerts began getting banned, not just in the South, but even in the North, even up in places like New Jersey. The mayor of New Jersey in 1956 banned rock and roll concerts from coming to town, in Jersey City, in Asbury Park, and places like that, because they felt it was a communist plot. This black rock and roll was trying to corrupt white youth and all that kind of stuff. But you can't stop rock and roll. So that was one of the changes. That was one of the first forms of consensual, if you will, consensual integration. When we had black leaders and white people as well working hard in civil rights, like Dr. King, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and many other blacks and whites who are marching, having boycotts, having sit-ins and demonstrations and protests in order to bring white adults together with black adults. These rock and roll people, Elvis, Chuck, Richard, Jerry Lee, these people were achieving that with kids. So that was one of the first significant changes. And it just kept growing and growing. I'm talking about music right now, but there are a lot of other cultural aspects that brought people together. But think about the music. White kids always gravitated to black music, and then it became something that they would adopt and they would play. If it wasn't for people like Chuck Berry and Little Richard, you wouldn't have Elvis Presley. You wouldn't have the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen. All those people, all their DNA goes, anybody who plays rock, all their DNA goes back to Chuck Berry. When you think of heavy metal or hard rock, what do you picture? Usually it's some, white guy with long blonde hair wearing black spandex and a lot of distortion on his guitar, like Twisted Sister or Metallica or whatever, But who invented hard rock? It wasn't the guy with the long blonde flowing hair. It was Jimi Hendrix. It was a black guy. So it's not a question of whether the music is black or white. It's music. It's to be shared with everybody. And that's why, people share music. But the powers that be always try to divide us and say, okay, well, that's urban music. That's country music. That's hillbilly music, or that's, hip hop music. It's all music, and it's meant to be shared. Most musicians don't really care about whether you're black, white, Asian, or Hispanic. All they care about is, hey, can we jam? Can we play good music together and make it sound good? And so we see this on a cultural level. But the powers that be are always trying to divide, because it's best to defeat your enemy by dividing and conquering. And while we're fighting amongst ourselves, they're at the top making money and keeping us busy amongst ourselves while they're doing whatever it is they're doing. And that's what we need to stop.
Great. I think that was a great answer.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Vetle. Vetle, whenever you're ready.
Yes. Thank you, Dewey. And thank you for coming on here.
Thank you.
So you were just talking about rock and how that has helped. I play the acoustic guitar. I play mainly 60s and like kind of that era rock. I just recorded a Pink Floyd song yesterday. But
cool. Well, Pink Floyd, they got their name from a blues artist. A black blues artist. Yeah, but they are a great rock band, a progressive rock band.
My question was, what music do you listen to when you want to relax, or when you're on a drive someplace?
I listen to a variety of stuff. My heart is in the older styles of music. I like listening to what's current, just to find out what's going on out there. I listen a lot to Leanne Rimes. I listen to Christina Aguilera. I listen to Bruno Mars. But I still listen. I played for Chuck Berry. I played piano for Chuck Berry for 32 years. Not every gig, but a lot of them over 32 years. I worked with a lot of the older rock and roll people. But I listen to everything.
Thank you. And my final question, most important one in my opinion, are you a David Bowie fan?
Yes, I met him one time. I like David Bowie. David Bowie was great, man. He was very innovative, very creative. He was a force to be reckoned with, and very influential.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And I knew his wife, Angela Bowie.
Ah, yes.
Great. Thank you, Vetle. Next question is from Anime King. Anime King, whenever you're ready.
Hello. Thank you for coming to the server for this AMA. So my question is, do you think rap music has a negative influence on the black community, especially modern rap, which contains a lot of lyrics pertaining to like violence, gangs, and like essentially just murder? Do you think this has like a negative influence on like the black community?
Listen, any kind of music that's negative has a negative influence. There's negative rock, there's negative rap music. Sure, of course, because people idolize music stars and things like that, and they take their messages seriously. You can take some of the white power skinhead rock. I've heard lyrics like burn nigger burn, burn nigger burn. Sure, that's going to have a negative influence on some people. Just like negative black rap will have a negative influence on the black community. Of course, we need music. That music is to be shared, is to be put out to make people feel good, and that's what I try to do. Now, of course, you got blues that are sad, of course, and that's good, and country music that that's sad and that's fine. But putting out messages of condemning women and beating them up, or destroying other races and killing people, shooting the police, and all that kind of nonsense. Sure, it's going to have a negative effect on anybody who listens to it, who is vulnerable to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Okay, next question is from me, actually. I'm going to still use this question because I can't find it on the list. But has there ever been anyone that you weren't able to convince, that no matter how hard you tried, no matter how hard you worked with someone, they just hated you because you're black? You just couldn't pull them over. And in those situations, when do you know when it's time to kind of give up?
Okay, well let's put it this way. I have never tried to convince anybody or I never even tried to convert anybody. You know, when you type in Daryl Davis in Google, you know, you'll find all kinds of, you know, headlines that say black musician converts X number of KKK people, or black musician converts 200 white supremacists, or whatever. No, those are all wrong. I never even converted one person. I am the impetus for over 200 white supremacists to change their minds, but they did it on their own. I simply gave them reason to think about it, and they came to the conclusion that, hey, you know, I need to go another path. I don't like to say that I try to convince somebody or convert somebody, because that's not what I set out to do. I just set out to find out, why do you feel that way about people like me? You know, I'm here to, you know, to let you be heard. You know, talk to me, enlighten me, help me understand this. And through our conversations, you know, and they were honest, transparent conversations on my part and on their part. And then they would come to the conclusion that they'd been wrong. And let me tell you how it works. All right. For example, you know, when I was a kid, and I was 10 years old, 1968, and I was in the Cub Scouts, and I was the only Black Scout in the area. It was Belmont, Massachusetts. Belmont is a suburb of Boston. And so we had a parade from Lexington to Concord, which are two towns right next door to Belmont. And that the parade was the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Brownies, 4-H Club, and some other organizations. We were marching the same route that Paul Revere rode, you know, when he was saying the British are coming and all that. So the sidewalks were lined with nothing but white people, and I'm the only Black person out there. And my den mother of my troop my den even let me carry the American flag, right? And people were cheering us and waving and all that. And we got to a certain point in the parade route where all of a sudden I was getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and small rocks by just a small group of white spectators off to my right on the sidewalk. And because nothing like that had ever happened to me, I didn't understand, you know, why they were throwing these rocks. And my den mother and cub master and troop leader all came running over, and they all were white, and they huddled over me with their bodies and escorted me out of the danger. And I kept saying, why are they hitting me? And all they would do is kind of shush me and rush me along. And they never answered my question. So when I got home, my mother and father, who were not at the parade, thought I'd fallen down, and they're putting Band-Aids on me and cleaning me up and asking me, how did I fall down and get all scraped up? And I told them I didn't fall down. I told them exactly what had happened to me. And for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down and explained to me what racism was. Now, I'd never even heard the word racism at that point in time, because I'd lived all over the world. You know, as a kid, because of my dad's job in the U.S. Foreign Service, I was an American embassy brat. And, you know, I had friends from all over the world, and none of them treated me like that. So I could not accept my parents' explanation that the color of my skin was what was causing people to throw things at me. It didn't make any sense, because the people who were throwing things at me, the color of their skin was the same color of the skin of hundreds of friends that I had, whether they were my little French friends, my German friends, my Australian friends, or my fellow American friends. So, you know, I thought my parents were lying to me, literally. And then about almost 2 months later, that same year, 1968, on April the 4th, and I remember it like it was yesterday, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And every major city in this country burned to the ground. And all in the name of this new word that I had learned called racism. So then I understood that this phenomenon does exist, but I didn't know why. You know, why do people dislike each other because of the color of their skin? And I had to find out. So I came up with a question at that age, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And so I've been looking for the answer to that question for the last 52 years. And so that's why I would seek out neo-Nazis, KKK members, and people like that, because a lot of them were professing their hate of blacks or Jews or, you know, whatever. So that's why, you know, I set out questioning them. And now when I sit in front of a Klan leader, a KKK member, or a neo-Nazi. And I say, hey, man, how can you hate me? You don't even know me. You just walked into the room 10 minutes ago to be interviewed, and you're seeing me for the first time. All you see is my skin color. Well, Mr. Davis, you have to understand something. Black people are prone to crime. That's why there are more black people in prison than white people. Now, what the guy is saying is 100% correct. There are more blacks in prison than there are white people. So what he's saying is true. However, it is a half-truth because he is not considering the imbalance of our judicial system that puts black people in prison when it sometimes lets white people go home for the same crime, or it gives black people longer sentences than it does white people for the same crime. So he's not considering that. He's just considering what he sees. And remember, one's perspective is one's reality. All right. So then he goes on to say that black people are inherently lazy, that we don't want to work. We prefer to scam the government welfare system. We always have our hand out for a freebie. And then he goes on to say that black people are born with a smaller brain. So the smaller the brain, the less space for intelligence. The larger the brain, the more capacity for intelligence. So now I'm just sitting here listening to this guy, and I'm not saying anything. I'm not attacking him. I'm not pushing back. And see, he's used to being pushed back on. You start calling somebody a criminal and telling them that they're lazy and that they're unintelligent. Most times, you get pushback. It wasn't that I was agreeing with him. I'm giving him some of those 5 core values. I'm showing him respect by letting him have a platform. I'm allowing him to be heard, and I'm treating him fairly. And that's what he's asking for, right? So I sit back and listen to all that. And now his temperature has come down, because when he first walks in that room and sees me, a black person, his wall goes right up. He's ready to radiate all this vitriol to me and let me know how inferior I am. Because after all, he is a white supremacist. In order to feel supreme, you got to make somebody else feel inferior. So that's his job. So when I say respect, understand something. I am not respecting what he is saying. I'm simply respecting his right to say it. All right. We all have the right to hate, but we don't have the right to hurt. So I'm going to, do I like what he's saying? No. Is what he is saying offensive? Absolutely, it's offensive. Am I offended by it? Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why I'm not offended by it. Too many people let their emotions get in front of them. Keep your emotions behind you, but know who you are. Check your self-esteem. Make sure you know who you are. Because if you have low self-esteem and you go into a room with somebody like that, chances are they're going to tell you who you are. If your esteem is not in check, you're going to leave that room believing them. So I know who I am, and he tells me that, about the brain, having a small brain and being unintelligent. And I asked him, I said, well, how was that evidenced? He said, well, it's evidenced by the fact that black school students, high school students, every year consistently, they score lower on the SATs than white kids do. Again, what he is saying is 100% true. Overall, black kids do score lower than white kids on the SATs. So his perspective is his reality. However, he's not considering the reason behind it. Where do most black kids in this country go to school? Most black kids go to school in the inner city. Where do most white kids go to school? Most white kids in this country go to school in the suburbs. And we know for a fact that inner city schools are not as good as suburban schools. The quality of the facilities, the textbooks, the teaching level, etc., is not as good. And I will guarantee you that black kids who go to school in the suburbs score just as high as some of those white kids and higher than some. White kids who go to school in the suburbs, white kids who go to school in the inner city score just as low, if not lower, than some of the black kids there. It has absolutely nothing to do with one's skin color or one's brain size, but it has everything to do with the quality of the educational system in which that child is enrolled. Now, but I don't push back on him yet, right? I'm just sitting back listening to him, giving him that respect, letting him be heard and being treated fairly. So after he exhausts all his vitriol at me, he's curious. as to how come I haven't objected to anything he's had to say. So now he's ready to reciprocate and listen to me. And here's what I do. I could go on the attack. I could say, no, you are the criminal. You are the one who goes around bombing black churches and hanging black men from trees and dragging them behind pickup trucks. So, you're the criminal. And I would be 100% correct, because the Klan has a history of doing that. But I don't do that. I don't go on the offense and attack him. What I do is I go on the defense and defend myself, because he put an attack on me. So I'm not going to attack him. I'm going to defend myself first. And all I do is say, listen, I hear what you're saying about the people in the prison, but you know what? I'm as black as anybody you've ever seen. I don't have a criminal record. I've never even been on welfare. And as far as my brain size goes, I've never measured my brain, but I'm sure it's the same size as anybody else's. And as far as my SAT scores go, my SAT scores got me into college. I have a bachelor's degree. And I say this knowing that the guy sitting across from me barely made it out of high school. I know that for a fact because I did my homework. All right. But I'm not going to throw that in his face, because that's just going to make his wall go up. I'm just presenting him with truths about myself. And so when he goes home at the end of the day, and I can tell you this for certain, because I've been doing this now for 37 years, this is what happens. He reflects on what transpired during the day. He's like, damn, I just had a 3-hour conversation with a black man, and we didn't even come to blows. We might have got a little loud, but we didn't come to blows. And what that Daryl guy said about such and such, it makes sense. Oh, but he's black. But what he said was true. Oh, but he's black. So they began having a cognitive dissonance. They realized that some of the things that they tuned in on were actually true, what I said. But they were upset because the truth came from a black source. So now it's a dilemma. Do I disregard that guy's skin color and believe it to be true because I know it's true and change my ideology? Or do I consider his skin color, and because he's black, I continue living a lie? That becomes the dilemma. For most of the time, many of them have changed and realized that they were wrong. But again, there will be those who will never change. I don't set out to change them. I just set out to give them a different perspective, because you cannot change one's reality. You cannot change one's reality. One's perspective is one's reality. So if you want to affect change, what you do is offer them different perceptions. And if they resonate with one of those perceptions, they will change their own reality. For example, it works with kids, it works with adults. Let's just say you take a 7 or 8 year old kid to a magic show, right? And the magician is up on stage and he asks for a female volunteer. So instantly 50 women in the audience raise their hands, right? And he points to one and says, no, you right there in the red top. Come on up here on stage. So the girl trots up on stage. Okay, what's your name? Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. And then he asks her to step into this long box and lie down. So she gets into the box and she sticks her legs out one end of the box and she sticks her head out the other end. So you don't see her body, you see her head on one end and you see her legs on the other. And he closes the lid. And then he takes a chainsaw and goes and cuts that box in half. And then he takes the half with the legs sticking out and moves it over to stage left, and the half with the head sticking out over on stage right. To that 7 or 8 year old kid, that man on stage has sawed that woman in half. And you cannot tell him he didn't do that. That is that kid's reality. That is his perception. He perceives that magician cut that woman in half because he saw it with his own eyes. And the more you tell him it wasn't real, and he sees her head over there and her legs over there, you cannot tell him it's not real. He believes it. One's perception is one's reality. And then the magician brings those two halves back together and opens up the lid, and the woman hops out in full form and goes back to her seat. You cannot tell that kid that man did not cut her in half, separate her, and put her back together. So what you can do is you can offer that child another perspective. All right. You can say, is it possible that perhaps the girl that he pointed to and had her come up on stage, maybe she works for that magician. Maybe she's a plant in the audience. Maybe she travels with him and tours with him. She knows the trick. And when she gets inside that box or coffin or whatever it is, there's some mannequin legs in there that she sticks out the holes on the end, and she brings her own legs and knees up under her chest so that her whole body is on one half of the box. So when he separates the two halves, you're seeing dummy legs over there, and you're seeing her head, but her whole body is in that half of the box. And then when he brings it back together, she pulls the dummy legs out, and then she gets out of the box. And so the kid's thinking, you know what? I guess that might be the only way it can work. And so that kid changes his own reality because you've given him another perspective. So that's what I do. I offer different perspectives. I don't try to change anybody's reality.
Well, that was a really, really good answer. Thank you so much for that. The next question is from a user called Snow Golem. The question is, do you think free speech helps or hinders de-radicalization? For example, you used the word nigger a little bit ago. Many online spaces ban the use of that word because they feel like it's offensive, detrimental to conversation, and it dehumanizes Black people. Do you agree with those policies, or do you think they actually hinder, the cause of de-radicalization?
I believe in telling it like it is. If somebody called me a nigger, I'm going to tell you they called me a nigger. I'm going to say they called me the N-word. They didn't say, hey, you N-word. They said, hey, you nigger. Is it offensive? Yes, it's offensive. Do I like it? No, I don't like it. But, I think hindering free speech, is bad because it doesn't allow the impact of what it does to other people be realized, especially, if the perpetrator cannot empathize for the victim because his free speech has been squashed. That's not good. People need to know what's going on. It's like we're talking about the news. I don't need somebody telling me they're giving me the news when they're giving me their opinion. Just give me the news. I'm not so dumb I can't form my own opinion. Just like everybody on this call is not so dumb they can't form their own opinion. So give us the news. If somebody called you something or said this or that or the other, then say it. And now, if you're around little kids or something like that, you don't want to be influential and so. But when you're around adults, tell it like it is. So
Okay.
yes, more free speech.
Okay. Next question is from Danielle. Danielle, you are unmuted. Go for it.
Yeah, 1 second, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so my question is, what does it take to gain the respect of a person who has already been conditioned to disrespect you?
Okay, what you do, you get respect by giving respect, and sometimes it's hard to give respect when somebody has been disrespecting you for a long time. Maybe all their life or the last 10 years or whatever. But that does not give you any reason to disrespect them. You may disrespect their opinion or their ideology or their behavior, but at the end of the day, they're still human beings. Here's the problem. We spend way too much time in this country talking about the other person, talking at the other person, or talking past the other person. Why don't we spend just a little bit of time talking with the other person? Again, I'll guarantee you will find some things that you agree upon. You'll find things that you disagree upon. But, when you find things that you agree upon, build upon those things. And then the things that you disagree on, especially the trivial things, such as, what color you are or where do you worship, begin to matter less and less. And even if they are an issue, you respect that. Just because you don't go to that synagogue or you don't go to that mosque or that temple or that church is no reason to disrespect somebody as a human being. I never thought any of these people would ever change, when I first started this mission. I grew up the same way probably most of you all grew up. You heard the cliche, a tiger does not change his stripes. A leopard does not change his spots. And so why would I think that a Klansman would change his robe and hood? In other words, change his ideology, Well, I was wrong. Yes, a tiger and leopard do not change their spots. Why? Because they're born with those spots and stripes. A Klansman or Klanswoman is not born with their robe and hood. You know, they're not born with that ideology. What can be learned can become unlearned. And so I learned that just through conversation, talking with people. I didn't set out to convert anybody, but when it happened, through conversation, somebody decided, hey, you know what? I think I've been wrong. Not overnight, but over time. These people come to these conclusions. It happened again and again and again. And I realized it's because I'm showing them respect. I'm allowing them to be heard. I'm treating them fairly. I'm treating them like they're one of my friends. I may not agree with what you stand for, but I'm willing to sit here and listen to you and let you try to convince me of it. And that's fine. That's what conversation is about. And we exchange ideas. And so when I listen to them, they in turn listen to me. And then when something resonates, they reevaluate how they think. Just like if something that they said resonated with me, and it made more sense than what I was thinking already, then I'm going to agree. I'll give you an example of something. How crazy is this? This is a true story. This exalted cyclops, which means a district leader in Klan terminology. Let me give you the hierarchy. If there's no such thing as the Ku Klux Klan anymore. All right, there used to be the Ku Klux Klan, but that does not exist anymore. There are many, many, many different Ku Klux Klan groups, and they all are autonomous. It used to be just one with chapters of that one all over the place, through Nathan Bedford Forrest and William Simmons. But now the Klan is so fractured, you have all these splinter groups with no main organization, no one imperial wizard. So if you have a Klan group in your state and you form another chapter in another state or in multiple states, you can then consider yourself to be a national Klan group. And therefore, you have to have a national leader. So we call our national leader, who oversees all the states in this country, the president. They call theirs the imperial wizard. Anybody that is prefixed with the word imperial means that person is a national officer. And then you have an imperial caliph, which would be like a vice president. Then you have a secretary, a treasurer, and on and on. And then the next level down is the state leader. We call our state leader the governor. They call theirs the grand dragon. Anybody who's prefixed with the word grand means that person is on the state level. A grand dragon being the top man in the state. A grand caliph would be like a lieutenant governor. And then you have secretaries and treasurers at that level as well. Down below the grand dragon, the state is divided into counties. We call the county leader the county manager or the county executive. They call that individual the great titan. Anybody great is on the county level. Within the county, you have districts, what they call claverns. We would call a district leader a mayor, a councilman, a selectman, an alderman. They call those individuals exalted cyclops. And below the exalted cyclops is just plain, rank and file Klan members. So this exalted cyclops was riding around in my car with me one day, and we were talking, and we got on the topic of crime. And he said that all Black people have a gene within us. We're born with this gene that makes us violent. I'm driving. He's sitting in my passenger seat. And I looked at him and I said, what are you talking about, man? He goes, yeah, you all have this gene, that makes you violent. That's why, there's so much Black crime. And I said, well, tell me, explain this to me. And he says, well, who's doing all the carjackings and drive-bys in Southeast? He was referring to an area of Washington, D.C., known as Southeast. And Southeast is predominantly Black. There's some whites that live there, but it's predominantly Black, and it's very, very high crime ridden. And I said, okay, it's Black people who's doing that, but that's what lives there. I said, who's doing all the crime in Bangor, Maine? White people, because that's what lives there. Yeah, I said, you're not even considering the demographics. He says, no, the demographics have nothing to do with it. You all have this gene. I said, man, I'm as Black as anybody you've ever seen. I have never done a carjacking or a drive-by. How do you explain that? And he did not pause 1 second. He answered me, boom, like that. He said, your gene is latent. It hasn't come out yet. Man, I was floored. I didn't know how to answer that. That answer was so far out in left field, I couldn't even grab onto it. And so I was speechless. My gene is latent, hasn't come out yet. And so I look over at him, and he's looking at me all smug and secure, like, you see, you got nothing to say. So I had to think about it for a moment. And then I said, well, all white people have a gene within them that makes them a serial killer. And he says, well, what proof do you have of that? I said, well, name me 3 black serial killers. And he thought about it. He could not even name me one. I said, here, I'm going to give you one. So I named one for him. I said, just name me 2. He couldn't do it. I said, Charles Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, Henry Lee Lucas, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, David Berkowitz, son of Sam, Albert DeSalvo, the Boston Strangler. I went on and on. I said, they're all white. I said, son, you are a serial killer. And he said, Daryl, I haven't killed anybody. I said, your gene is latent, hasn't come out yet. He goes, well, that's stupid. I said, well, duh. I said, you're right. It is stupid for me to say that about you, but it's no more stupid for me to say that about you than what you said about me. He got very, very quiet. And he paused for a moment, and then he changed the subject. But 5 months later, based on that conversation, he quit the Ku Klux Klan, and he gave me his Robin Hood. And that was the first Robin Hood that I ever got. And now I've got over 50 of them. And, all I did not attack his reality. His reality was, that black people have a gene that makes us, violent. And we go out and do carjackings and this, that, and the other. I did not attack his reality, even though I didn't believe it, right? What I did was I gave him another perspective. And when he resonated with that perspective, he changed his own reality, which is why he got out.
Wow. Okay. Next question is from Chad King. And that question is, do you believe in God? And kind of like an add-on from me. If you do, is that something that you've used before to kind of help you, what's the word I'm looking for? Communicate with people, find common ground? Like, do you think that helped you?
I believe in God. Was that the question?
Yes.
Yes, I absolutely do. But I respect people who don't. I respect people who have their own, different gods or whatever. I believe in one God. And I don't believe that you have to be, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe you have to be a Christian. You could be Jewish, you could be Muslim, you could be whatever, if you accept the same God I do. But again, if you don't, I still respect you. And now, the second part of the question was, do I use that? Sometimes, yes. And especially when I'm dealing with the Klan, because the Klan claims to be a Christian organization. So again, I was talking to a guy in the Klan, and he was a chaplain, okay, which is called a CLUD, K-L-U-D-D. A Grand CLUD means state chaplain. So anyway, we were talking, and I said to him, I said, if you all are Christian, why do you burn up the cross? And he goes, oh, well, we have 2 occasions upon which we set the cross aflame. Aflame was the word he used. I said burn. And then he wanted to tell me that one is called a cross burning and one is called a cross lighting. And I'd heard the terms before. And he explained that a cross burning was when the Klan would take a 5 or 10 foot cross, which is wrapped in burlap, and the burlap has been soaked in what they call Klan cologne, which is actually diesel fuel or kerosene, and they, put the cross in your yard and set it on fire. That's meant as a threat, as an intimidation. We know who you are. Cease and desist. This is your only warning, because if you don't, we'll be back and we will, take care of you. So the burning cross is meant as intimidation. But when they have a rally, they have a 20 or 30 foot cross that is wrapped in burlap that's been dipped in Klan cologne, and they set it on fire, and then they parade around it and salute it and all that kind of thing, and that's called a cross lighting. And I said, I don't care whether it's a cross lighting or cross burning. My question to you was, why are you setting fire on the cross? If you're a Christian, isn't that sacrilegious? Isn't it blasphemous? Oh, no. We're using fire symbolically we have two reasons to use of what it symbolizes. He says we use fire as a symbol of purity, and then he pointed out an example. He said, your mom, did you ever get a splinter in your finger, and your mom take a needle and stick it in a flame to purify it, and then dig it out? I said, yeah. He goes, well, that's the same thing. We use fire as a purifier, and it signifies the purity of the white race. I said, okay. And he says the second reason is because we are a Christian organization, and we're lighting the way for Jesus Christ. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, you must have a different Jesus Christ than I have. And he says, no, Daryl, there's only one Jesus Christ. I said, no, there are two, must be two. He says, no, there's one. I said, well, you have one and I have one. He says, no, there's only, he goes, what is your Jesus Christ, black or something? I said, no. I said, he's not black. I said, but guess what? He's not white either. I said, I have been to the area in which Jesus Christ existed. I've walked along the path where he supposedly walked, and that was over in Damascus, Syria. I've been to Damascus. And I said, people over there are olive complected, and Jesus Christ appeared to be one of those types of people. So chances are he was probably olive complected. And so the guy says, well, what's your point? I said, my point remains the same. You have a different Jesus Christ than I have, so therefore there are two Jesus Christs. And he says, well, how do you figure? And I said, because you said that you're lighting the way for Jesus Christ. When you set that cross aflame, the big tall cross at the rallies. He goes, that's right. And if you knew, he said, if you were a Christian, you would know that Jesus Christ is coming back. So we're lighting the way. I said, well, see, that's the difference. You have to light the way for your Jesus Christ. My Jesus Christ lights the way for me. Who the hell are you to light the way for Jesus Christ? And I said, the Bible says Jesus Christ is the light. So who are you so arrogant that you're going to light the way for Jesus Christ? And you know what? He'd never heard that argument. He had just accepted what the higher ups, the dragons, the wizards, and everybody else had told him without question. And then he realized how much sense that made, that who is he to light the way for Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ, if you're a Christian, you believe he died on the cross for you. He lights the way for you, not the other way around. So he realized how arrogant that sounded, and he later quit the plan. So this is what I'm talking about. Don't attack somebody's reality. Just give them a better perspective if you have one. If you don't, then accept theirs.
Well, thank you so much. So I know we're getting very close to that, the hour mark.
Yeah, I've got to jump off here in about 2 minutes at 4:00, unfortunately. But I'd love to do it again sometime if you all are willing.
I was actually just going to ask you that.
Sure.
We have plenty more
part one, and we'll do part two.
Awesome. Daryl, thank you so much for agreeing to come on today. I have one more question, if that's okay, just really quickly. I saw this come up a few times from a few different people. That question is, what advice would you give to someone who has friends that are racist, right, in the real world? What advice would you give them to, maybe give those people a better perspective?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you just said people who have friends who are racist. You have those friends because you have something in common with them. And those friends who are racist, the reason why you keep them as your friends is because there's something about them that is good that you like. So build upon those things. Don't discard them because of their racist ideology and things like that. Yes, racism is destructive. It's destructive to others and it's destructive to self. So don't get caught up, in those issues with them, but keep them for what you like about them and keep talking to them. Show them differences and offer them counter narratives to what they believe. Don't attack the reason why they became racist. Just show them reasons why they should not be. Give them different perspectives, and you are the only ones who can probably get through to them because you are their friends. And what do friends do? We take care of one another. That's what friends are for.
Great, Daryl. Again, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. I know I've learned a lot from you. I know that a lot of people here have way more questions to ask you, so I'll reach out to you later. Maybe we can set up that part too.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thank you all for having me, and all you all out there. I look forward to speaking with you all again. Have a great rest of your weekend, and let's chat again soon. Take good care.
Great. Thank you, Daryl. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Cool. We're done.
Based.
Now the other channels are open, so you guys can go back there. If you want to stick around here for some crazy reason, you can do that, and I'll mute people. But if you start screaming over each other, I'm going